Hi guys, I am finally home and I jumped on live right away. So today is our first live stream for Sorcery of Thorns. I'm outside right now. If you hear birds or my dog running around, it's just so nice out. I want to be outside. And I have a little cold right now. If I sound congested, that's why. But this is our first live stream for Sorcery of Thorns, and I'm doing it a little bit differently this month. Each time we have one, we're going to go over our initial thoughts of these questions for each of the 10 or so chapters that we'll be discussing. Hello, thanks for joining. Welcome to our first live stream for Sorcery of Thorns. As I was saying, we will be discussing this card each time we do a live stream for the next 4 weeks. So we could talk about how our views are changing as the book goes along. And I have already finished this book because I loved it so much. But I will give my initial views on the book for the first chapters. So we had planned to finish chapters 1 through 10 before the first live stream, and I hope that everybody did. And my initial thoughts on this book were that it immediately drew my attention. I loved the characters. I loved all of the ideas that surrounded the Grimoires and the magicalness of them all, and how they were evil or not evil, and how they each had their own special traits or their special personalities. And I thought that was really interesting, and that people were trained to deal with them and trained to protect them and to serve them. So I thought that was very interesting. And then the magicalness of the first 10 chapters was an immediate draw-in for me in comparison to We Hunt the Flame, that was a little bit of a slower start and got really picked up at the end of the book. So that's my initial feelings for chapters 1 through 10 of Sorcery of Thorns. Next, we're going to go through some of these questions and see how I felt during the first 10 chapters, and then you guys can also put in the comments how you guys felt about the first 10 chapters. So this first question is, how well does the author establish her fantasy world within the book? I think she did a fantastic job, even in the first 10 chapters, of establishing her fantasy world. It immediately drew me in. I was so excited to start reading this book, even from the description, to be honest. And even the main character was just very interesting and had a very likable and relatable personality, in that she felt misunderstood because she was adopted, per se, by the great libraries, and how she was always mischievous and trying to find ways to learn new things and to become the best, which was very relatable for me. And I thought that was a great way of setting up the character development, and a great way of setting up just the whole scene of her fantasy world of the great libraries and the Grimoires. And I thought it did a really nice job of talking about the different levels of the libraries, and how there are people that protect the Grimoires, there are people that service them, and they're servants and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting, and how the wardens have certain great keys, and then a different level people have different keys, and I thought that was really interesting to learn even in the first 10 chapters. The second question, what was your favorite quote or passage? I definitely really enjoyed the passage where she was fighting the Grimoire in the first 10 chapters, the Book of Eyes. I thought that was very, very interesting, and it drew me in, and I was on the edge of my seat for the entire chapter of her fighting the Book of Eyes, and how she had to, I thought that was really cool how they transform into maleficence, I believe is how it's pronounced, and how they have to fight them to the death. There's no bringing them back, apparently. There's no bringing them back to what it was originally as. After the book gets damaged, it turns into a Maleficent, and they have to fight it to the death before it kills other people. And I thought that passage for me was very powerful and very interesting. And how believable did you find the narrator to be? Do you feel like you got the true story? So far, I really think the narrator, the main character, is very relatable in the first 10 chapters. And she really set the stage of her personality, and knowing that she's a little resentful, but at the same time looking for approval from the main warden, from the director. And while being independent and resentful, she's also still looking for approval from her higher-ups and the people that she trusts and loves, which is very relatable because I feel like a lot of people feel that way. So you almost had this instant connection with the main character, at least I did. So I thought she did a really great job with the narrator so far. And as far as getting the true story, I feel like that's something that is what you really need to look at when the book is done. So getting the true story so far, I believe we have, in terms of the narration of the book. The narrator is very believable. I feel like I know her so far, and I know choices she'll make as the book goes on. So I think the author really set it up well for chapters. Hello, thanks for joining. We're just talking about the Fantasy Monthly Book Club questions. I decided we're going to go over them each week and see if our thoughts or feelings on the questions change as we read more chapters. So now we're on the fourth question, which is, do you think the story was plot-based or character-driven? So far in chapters 1 through 10, I think it's really plot-based because she's really spinning this web of what the great libraries are, who the wardens are, who the great librarians are, who the servants are, and what everybody does to make sure that the grimoires stay safe and don't become damaged and turn into maleficence or maleficence, however you say that. And she just really does a great job of setting up the plot in the first 10 chapters. I really got a feel for the world building and understanding how everything is going. So I would say chapters 1 through 10 are definitely plot driven. So for question 5, what made the setting unique or important? Could the story have taken place anywhere? So the setting and the story, of course, I believe is made unique and important through the use of the grimoires in the Great Library. I have never read a book that had the main center was around these magical books that had powers and are able to do all of these things. See, I have the book here. And I don't know about you guys, but I really like the spine of this book. Weird side note, but I really like the spine of the book. And yeah, I would say in the first 10 chapters that it does a really nice job of showcasing that it's all about these grimoires, these magical books, which I have not had in a book prior to this. I've never read a book where it was so centered around like libraries. And at first when I read the description, I felt like it seemed just a little bit cheesy. But when you really get into it and really start reading what the whole premise is, I was blown away of how fantastic it was and how much I loved it. So I don't think that the story could take place anywhere because it's a completely new plot for me. I haven't read anything like this before, and it wouldn't make sense for like a great library to be in New York or Chicago or China or Japan. I think that she did a really nice job of building this world where only it could take place there, such as like Harry Potter or things like that. There's no other place like that. So I thought she did a really nice job of that. So we went through all 5 of the questions, and I gave my synopsis of what I think the first 10 chapters were like. If you guys want to leave a comment below and leave your first impression of our 5 discussion questions for the chapters 1 through 10, let me know what you think of them, and I'm just really interested to see the progression of these questions, if we end up having different thoughts or feelings as the chapters go on. And also, leave the answer to these 3 questions. How do you like the story so far based on the description and based on your hopes or dreams for the story when you picked up the book? 2, what are your first impressions of the character, the main character? And 3, who is your favorite character in the book so far? Because I know with some people, it's not always the main character. Like, for me, I, of course, love Nathaniel, but I also like, well, Elizabeth is great, Nathaniel's great. I just have so many favorite characters. Of course, I love the director as well. She's not in the book for a long period of time, but you get this really airy vibe of almost importance and supportiveness and like rooting for the underdog. So that was a big thing for me. I loved her for however long she was in it for. I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't read all of the first 10 chapters. But yeah, so those 3 questions. Tell me which character is your favorite right now, your first impressions of the narrator, and also tell me what your favorite passage was. And I also would love it if you guys, as you start reading, so I know that the quote print and the 2 bookmark quotes come from the book. So it would be really awesome if, as you guys were reading and you found those quotes in the book, if you would just take a snapshot, post it in this group, and be like, hashtag found a quote, or found the quote page, blah blah blah, and then other people will know, oh, okay. And we could even make a thread chain of it, and other people, when they find it, can post their pictures in the comments, and we can all have a good time and just really be able to talk about it and track each other's reading, and that will be really fun. So I hope you guys like this live stream. Of course, answer the 3 questions below, and I hope that we can all have a great discussion next week too.